Korean Studies today to host Minister Kim Yung Ho, the Minister of Unification from South Korea. My name is Celeste Arrington. I'm the director of the GW Institute for Korean Studies here, and I am also a professor in the Political Science Department, as well as a member of the faculty at the Elliott School of International Affairs. The GW Institute for Korean Studies for the last 8 years has been promoting Korean studies in the DC area and beyond, and forging a lot of connections, many of which we have forged with the Ministry of Unification support over the years. And I would like to thank the Minister personally for his continuing support. In a little over a month, on November 20th, we will be hosting a full-day event called the Global Korea Forum with support from the Ministry of Unification here at GW, so stay tuned for that event as well. It will be focused on trilateral US-ROK-Japan cooperation and its implications for the Korean Peninsula. So please stay tuned for that. Before I introduce Dean Alyssa Ayers from the Elliott School, who will introduce the minister today, I would be remiss in not thanking our GWIC staff. So my associate director at the GW Institute for Korean Studies, Kim Yung Ho, originally extended the invitation to the minister this summer, and we're very grateful that you accepted that. So thank you, Yono, for that. And today's event would not be possible without the support of Rabina Ugale and outside Takara, Askew, our program manager and program coordinators. I want to thank them as well. In addition, today we are co-sponsoring this event, which is part of our Korea policy programming at GWICS with the East Asia National Resources Center. And I want to thank the staff from the East Asia National Resources Center as well for their continuing support of Korea-focused programming here. So without further ado, let me introduce Dean Alyssa Ayers, who has kindly come today to introduce the minister. So Alyssa Ayers is a foreign policy practitioner and an award-winning author. She is a specialist on South Asia and has written about India's rise on the world stage, and as well as India's future and urban development. She, in addition to being an academic, she served in government, much like the minister himself, and she was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia. She got her AB from Harvard, her MA and PhD from the University of Chicago, and we are really grateful for your support for GWICS over the years, and so I welcome you to welcome the minister. Thank you.
And it's great to see a full house here for what I think is going to be an important set of remarks. It is an honor for us to be able to welcome Minister Kim Yung Ho, the Minister of Unification for the Republic of Korea, to the George Washington University. I think all of you are aware, but our GW Institute of Korean Studies, which we do call GWICS, has promoted Korean Studies classes, research, and many public events here at GW since 2016. And I think it's evident that we attract a lot of students and members of the broader community in Washington, D.C. to the kind of conversations we're able to convene here. And so we're so pleased that Minister Kim has accepted our invitation to speak here today. I'd like to offer a few words of introduction for our esteemed speaker. Minister Kim, as you heard, is both a scholar and a diplomat. He is, in addition to his ministerial role, a professor of political science and diplomacy at Songshin Women's University. He previously served in government in various capacities, notably as ambassador at large for human rights at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. He earned his BA from Seoul National University, an MA in International Affairs from Boston University, and a PhD from the University of Virginia. And I just learned that during his time there, he also became familiar with GW and our great campus and our attention to Korean studies. His speech here, as you heard from Professor Arrington, is particularly meaningful given this moment and the timing of the trilateral U.S.-South Korea-Japan meetings happening in Washington this week. And those meetings are focused on continuing to deepen cooperation among all three countries to promote regional peace and security. North Korea presents one of the primary security threats that trilateral cooperation seeks to manage. Geopolitics in Northeast Asia have shifted significantly in the past few years. North Korea and Russia have grown closer, signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement in 2023. Russia has gained support from North Korea in its war in Ukraine. North Korea is also leveraging U.S.-China strategic competition to its advantage. This solidarity with Russia and China enables North Korea to further develop its nuclear and missile capabilities, as well as to evade sanctions. So Minister Kim was appointed to lead the Ministry of Unification in July of last year in the midst of this difficult landscape. He also has led in the creation of a new unification doctrine for the Yoon Suk-yeol administration this past summer. The new unification doctrine seeks to address the shifting security environment surrounding the Korean Peninsula and the North's apparent abandonment of unification as a policy goal this year. Importantly, this new doctrine also prioritizes measures to increase North Korean people's access to information, which the regime has curtailed. This week's trilateral meetings similarly emphasize the threat that the Kim family regime in North Korea poses to its own citizens. Many students here at GW are concerned about human rights in North Korea, as is the Ministry of Unification. Internal changes within North Korea, including marketization, could change the country's course with implications for inter-Korean relations in the broader region. So we look forward to the minister's remarks about this evolving situation inside and outside North Korea and policy responses. Before turning things over to Minister Kim, let me particularly thank the Ministry of Unification for supporting the Global Korea Forum, which again we will host here at GW on November 20th. And those discussions will similarly focus on trilateral U.S., South Korea, Japan cooperation regarding the Korean Peninsula and creating a brighter future for the North Korean people. We look forward to Minister Kim's remarks and thank him again for joining us today. Minister Kim, may I ask you to come to the podium?
Thank you for a kind introduction, the team Elisa Ayers. Good afternoon. My name is Kim Yung Ho, Minister of Unification, Republic of Korea. It's my great honor to have opportunity to speak to you today about the changing geopolitics in Northeast Asia and the unification and North Korean policy of Yoon Suk-yeol administration. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the GW Institute Korean Studies Director Celeste Ellington and Associate Director Professor Kim Yung Ho and all those who organized this important event. I understand GW has been playing a pivotal role in Korean studies in the US with its Korean language program since 1983 and launching the Institute for Korean Studies in 2017. I hope Ministry of Unification will continue to cooperate with GW. I also want to extend my thanks to all the attendees who, despite your busy schedule, have shown great interest in the unification of the Korean Peninsula and have joined us today. Today's topic is changing geopolitics in Northeast Asia and inter-Korean relations. Today's talk will consist of 3 parts. In the first part, I will explain the current international situation surrounding the Korean Peninsula. This analysis will help us to understand the background of the President Yoon Suk-yeol's unification doctrine he announced at the Independence Day speech of August 15 this year. In the second part, I will address the changes taking place within North Korean society. I will focus on the report on North Korean socio-economic reality published by Ministry of Unification last February. The English version of this report is available at the Ministry's homepage. This report is based on the interviews with 6,351 North Korean defectors. Unification Ministry conducted interview with North Korean defectors for the last 10 years. And we came out with this report last February. So I will explain the contents of this report in detail later. Lastly, I will explain the direction of Yoon Suk-yeol administration's unification and North Korea policies, focusing on President Yoon's unification doctrine. I want to begin the first part of my talk by explaining what is meant by the term doctrine in international politics. A doctrine refers to a foreign policy direction and a vision presented by a national leader at a turning point in international politics from the perspective of national interest. An example is the famous Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine was a strategic vision designed to cope with emerging US-Soviet Cold War competition on the global scale. For a divided nation like Korea, unification is one of the president's most critical responsibilities mandated by the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. At this critical juncture in international politics and inter-Korean relations, President Yoon has proposed unification doctrine based on the principles of freedom, peace, and prosperity. Historically, we have seen great changes in international environment surrounding the Korean Peninsula. In the 1970s, during the period of US-China détente, the inter-Korean joint statement was agreed upon in 1972. In the late 1980s, with the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and the beginning of the post-Cold War era, the inter-Korean Basic Agreement on Reconciliation and Cooperation was signed in 1991. However, the current international situation has changed significantly compared to the détente and the post-Cold War period. This new reality demands a fresh vision and strategy for unification. These are international background of the unification doctrine announced by President Yoon Suk-yeol. Today, there is ongoing strategic competition between US and China. And when we look at Europe, the Ukraine war continues more than 2 years. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the divide between liberal democracy and authoritarianism has intensified. The conflict in the Middle East continues and even expanded recently. When you look at the Korean Peninsula, North Korea continues to violate UN Security Council sanctions by developing nuclear weapons and missiles. North Korea provides Russia with artillery ammunition. North Korea is reportedly ready to conduct its 7th nuclear test whenever North Korean leader Kim Jong-un thinks that it is appropriate time. When it comes to North Korean human rights, the situation continues to deteriorate. Yoon Suk-yeol administration published a report on North Korean human rights in 2023, and the report was also published again in 2024. It was the first report on the governmental level. Through this report, we have confirmed the human rights situation in North Korea is extremely dire. Despite increase in North Korea's nuclear threat and the deteriorating human rights conditions in North Korea, there are slow yet irreversible changes occurring in North Korean society from below. Tensions are rising between the economic power of North Koreans with marketization and influx of external information, and the political power of the North Korean regime try to control and suppress them. These societal changes and the resulting shift in the consciousness of North Koreans provide important empirical ground for the unification doctrine. In February this year, Unification Ministry published the report on North Korea's economy and society, as I told you before. This report provides a more detailed explanation of the changes in North Korean society. The main characteristics of these changes can be summarized as follows. Number one, marketization. Number two, informatization. Number three, institutionalization of corruption. And finally, the rise of individualistic consciousness among North Korean people. I will explain to you these changes in detail one by one. First, we are witnessing the activation of Jangmarang, that is marketplace, and the widespread marketization within North Korea. 72% of respondents of North Korean defectors said that they did not receive any food distribution from the regime while they lived in North Korea. In middle 1990s, during the Great Famine, the public distribution system in North Korea totally broke down. North Koreans began to actively participate in market activities for their living. They became less dependent on the regime and more self-reliant through the market. And 93% of North Korean defectors responded that they had to engage in market activities to make a living. And the second change is related to inflow of outside information into North Korean society. North Koreans are increasingly interested in the outside world due to the spread of Hallyu, Korean Wave, and the informatization phenomenon. Currently, there are more than 7 billion mobile phones in North Korea. A significant number of North Koreans are also watching South Korean dramas, TV broadcasts, and Chinese and US movies. According to testimonies from those who defected last year, exposed to South Korean news and culture was a major motivation for their defection. The third aspect of the change is widespread corruption in North Korea. It has been confirmed corruption in North Korean society has been institutionalized. When asked whether they had ever given a bribe while living in North Korea, more than half of respondents said yes. As changes such as marketization, inflow of external information, and the widespread corruption continue, North Koreans' perceptions are also evolving. The most notable trend is the rise of individualist thinking. Increasingly, North Korean people are prioritizing working for themselves and their families over sacrificing for the party and the regime. This shift reflects a growing sense of personal and familial responsibility rather than collective loyalty to the regime and the state. There is also an increasing negative perception among North Korean defectors regarding the hereditary succession of power based on baekdu bloodline. The reason that I have explained socio-economic changes within North Korea in detail is that these internal changes are influencing the regime's recent unification and South Korea policies. The most significant change is growing admiration North Koreans have for South Korean society. During the day, North Koreans consume juncture culture, that is official ideology of North Korean regime. But at night, they turn to Hallyu, Korean culture. This means the Hallyu culture appeared as an alternative to the juncture culture. North Korean totalitarian regime places great importance on controlling information. Unlike traditional dictatorship that focus on physical repression, totalitarian regimes seek total control of the mind and the body. So it is called totalitarianism. Therefore, controlling information and enforcing indoctrination are essential in maintaining the totalitarian political system. If the inflow of outside information is left unchecked, it could lead to challenges against the regime from below. In response, the North Korean regime is alarmed by its populations exposed to external information and has intensified its effort to blockade and control this. The recent introduction of 3 base laws, such as law on rejecting reactionary culture and ideology in 2020, Pyongyang Cultural Language Protection Act in 2021, And finally, Youth Education Guarantee Law in 2023. All these laws demonstrate the widespread influence of K culture and outside information in North Korea. The regime feels deeply threatened by this. The reactionary culture and ideology rejection law stipulate harsh penalties ranging from imprisonment to execution for watching or distributing South Korean dramas. The Pyongyang Cultural Language Protection Act punishes the use of South Korean style language by young North Korean generations. The North Korean regime is attempting to erase the idea of unification by rejecting the idea of homogeneous ethnicity between North and South Koreans. The North Korean regime seeks to adopt a hostile two-state formula with each constitutional revision. This policy shift intends to suppress and remove North Korea's aspiration for freedom and unification. President Yoon's unification doctrine reflects changes in international situation, the advancement of North Korea's nuclear capabilities, worsening human rights conditions in North Korea, a shift in the consciousness of North Korean people, and finally, North Korean regime's policy shift. It is time for us to move beyond relying on the goodwill of the North Korean regime and to actively create conditions for change and unification through a proactive vision and strategy. This is why the Yoon administration came up with the unification doctrine. In the final part of my talk, I will explain the content of the unification doctrine in detail. Unification doctrine is composed of 3 key visions and 3 core strategies and 7 major action plans. The first vision is a nation based on freedom, safety, and pursuit of happiness. Unification will fundamentally eliminate the disruption to freedom and the threat to safety caused by division, ensuring a better future for all people on the Korean Peninsula. Through unification based on freedom, North Koreans will enjoy freedoms from oppression and poverty, allowing them to fully enjoy their human dignity. The second vision is related to a strong and prosperous nation through creativity and innovation. Unification is future national development strategy that will allow the ROK to leap forward even further on the foundation of solid freedom and peace. With unification, the economic territory will expand to the entire Korean Peninsula, creating new growth engines and guaranteeing even greater opportunities and prosperity for future generations. The third vision emphasizes a nation contributing to global peace and prosperity. A free and unified Korea will be a monumental achievement that sparks peace and prosperity in Northeast Asia, Indo-Pacific region, and the wide international community. The unified Republic of Korea will share universal values with global citizens and they lead a global order based on justice and the rule of law. The Unification Doctrine also presents three core strategies at the domestic and North Korean and international levels to realize its three key visions. First, we need to reinforce the capacity for unification based on freedom for our people. The ROK is the only country which has achieved both industrialization and democratization among developing nations since World War II. Strengthening public support for unification based on freedom and solidifying the foundations of freedom within our society are essential for leading this unification process. The second strategy is to promote North Korean people's aspiration for unification based on freedom and human rights. This unification doctrine emphasizes the important role of North Korean people. It outlines concrete strategies to foster North Korea's desire for freedom and unification, recognizing them as key actors in this process. The third strategy of this doctrine highlights the importance of international solidarity and support for unification. Unification, we pursue extend universal values of freedom and human rights, and thus ask the international community to join us in this responsible endeavor. The role of future generations, well educated in mature democratic societies like GW student, is particularly important, which is why your interest and support here today are crucial. The Republic of Korea will make responsible contributions to international peace and prosperity, while strengthening alliance with the US and cooperation with international community to lay the groundwork for unification. Finally, I will explain the 7 major action plans of the unification doctrine. First, we need to advance unification education. Interest in unification is declining among the young generations in South Korea. We will develop various unification education programs to inspire young people with a dream and expectation of unification based on freedom. We will utilize virtual spaces like the metaverse. We will introduce familiar content and edutech to the unification education field for future generations. Second, we will pursue multifaceted effort to improve human rights in North Korea. As I told you before, the Yoon administration was the first to publish a report on North Korean human rights on the governmental level. We plan to continue doing so on an annual basis. This report will also be translated into English and shared with international community. We will also establish the National Center for North Korean Human Rights to raise public awareness of North Korean human rights domestically and internationally. To support civil society activities promoting human rights, we will create the North Korean Freedom and Human Rights Fund a foundation dedicated to advancing human rights in North Korea. Third, we will provide humanitarian aid to North Korean people. My government maintains a consistent stance. Humanitarian assistance to North Korean people will proceed regardless of political and military conditions. Recently, my government proposed humanitarian aid for flood recovery in North Korea. Although there has been no response yet, we hope North Korea will engage with us. Fourth, we will expand right to access information for North Korean people. We will actively pursue various efforts to ensure North Koreans have access to diverse external information through multiple channels. Support will also be extended to civil organizations producing content aimed at informing North Koreans. Fifth, we will support North Korean defectors' successful integration into South Korean society. The successful settlement of North Korean defectors in South Korea will send a positive message to North Koreans. North Korean defectors can play a crucial role in the future unification process. The Yoon administration has designated July 14th this year as North Korean Defectors Day to protect and warmly embrace defectors as citizens of South Korea. As a sixth action plan, we have proposed to establish the Inter-Korean Working Group for Dialogue to discuss inter-Korean issues to North Korea. My government is prepared to discuss any topic with North Korea and urges the North Korean authority to respond positively. And finally, as a seventh action plan, we will have global Korea Forum. That is a Korea's Davos Forum to discuss unification issues. Through this forum, we aim to build international consensus and expand global support for unification based on freedom. This concludes my talk on how my government will respond to changing global environment with unification doctrine. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Switch into the Q&A portion. The minister is going to have consecutive translation. So I will open up the floor to questions from our audience, which you can tell there's many here who are interested in your remarks today. As you ask your question, I would ask that you first identify yourself briefly and keep your questions short so that we can get to as many people as possible. Okay? Thank you very much. Why don't we begin over here? That's a good question. I think it's short. Why don't you just speak loudly?
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm Soyeon Kim for Radio for Asia. RFA, you're actually broadcasting news into North Korea. So my question is, many of us in this room may know that North Korea had this very aggressive reaction towards the drone sent from South Korea carrying this anti-North Korea leaflets. And some are concerned about this kind of activity can further escalate tensions on the Korean Peninsula, which is already has a deep high tension. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you find a balance between, in terms of sending outside information into North Korea, but also dealing with this escalating tension? 그래서 최근에 그 정부에서 와서 북한에서 굉장히 되게 그 보복하겠다고 많이 반응을 했잖아요. 그리고 한편에서는 특히 한국에서는 그거에 대해서 이미 높아진 긴장을 이런 행동들이 더 높인다고 우려를 하는 목소리가 나오고 있는데 그거 관련해서 어떻게 생각하시고 이런 그 정보 유입의 중요성과 그리고 이런 갈등을 좀 낮출 수 있는 그런 걱정 사이에서 어떻게 밸런스를 찾을 수 있다고 생각하시는 거죠?
이 북한 주민들의 이 외부 정보에 대한 접근권이라고 하는 것은 이 북한 주민들이 누려야 될 가장 기본적인 알 권리 중에 하나다 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 그렇기 때문에 이 문제는 대한민국뿐만이 아니고 한국의 NGO라든지 글로벌 NGO들도 많은 관심을 가지고 있는 것으로 그렇게 알고 있습니다. 그러니까 이 정보 접근권이라고 하는 것은 그 정보를 북한 주민들이 접근할 수 있는 그러한 기반을 조성하는 것도 대단히 중요하다는 그런 생각을 하게 됩니다. 그러니까 북한 주민들이 자유를 누리지 못하기 때문에 북한 정권이 자원을 외국 분배해서 핵과 미사일 개발에 사용하고 그렇게 함으로 해서 북한 경제가 악화되고 북한 주민들이 식량난을 겪게 된다 이렇게 볼 수 있겠습니다. 그러니까 북한 주민들이 자기의 목소리를 낼 수 있다고 한다면 북한 정권의 그러한 왜곡된 자원 배분도 변화될 수 있을 것이다 이렇게 생각합니다. 그렇게 함으로 해서 북한 당국의 정책, 행동, 태도, 변화가 이루어질 수 있을 것이다 이런 생각을 하게 됩니다.
So when we're looking to the access for information of the North Korean regime and North Korean people, we believe that this information can help North Korean residents to have the basic information they need, and that is the basic right that they deserve. That is why the Korean government, as well as the South Korean NGOs and international NGOs, are very much interested in this right to access information for North Korean people. And I think it's also important for us to try to set the foundation and basic framework where they will be able to receive this information. So when North Korean people do not have a right to have access to information, their freedom is extremely restricted. And the regime gains the freedom to utilize their resources and distort the distribution of resources to development of their nuclear capacity and missiles instead of investing them in the economy. So therefore, when people start to have voice in North Korea, the regime will have no other choice but to gradually change their policy and tendency.
Thank you very much. I'll take the next question. Why don't we go in the back corner? I think it's Henry. Yeah.
Hi, Henry Song from One Korea Network. Thank you for your presentation, Minister Kim, and thank you to GWIX for putting this program together. My question is related to what Ms. Kim asked in the first question. With the activists and the defectors sending information into North Korea, there have been some opposition still from some members of the government and in South Korea to try to prevent defectors and activists from doing this type of activity. The latest news is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the governor of Gyeonggi province is setting up some safety zones or some type of measures to prevent defectors from doing this activity. We, as an activist myself, we don't want to go back to the previous administration where they blocked all activities such as this. What measures will the Yoon administration put in place or continue to allow these defectors and activists to continue doing this type of activities of sending information via balloons, rice bottles in the ocean, or drones, or what have you? Thank you.
네, 장관님 오늘 최근에 어떻게 보면 이제 민간단체들의 활동과 관련해서 이제 야당 현재 반대 세력들과의 이제 충돌이 어느 정도 있는 것 같습니다. 특히나 최근 경기도지사 같은 경우는 이제 경기도 지역 내 이제 관련 조치들을 취해서 이제 활동가들의 활동을 좀 제한하는 그런 상황도 있었습니다. 어떻게 보면 저 자신도 활동가로서 이제 향후 야당에서 혹은 이제 정책이 변화해서 이제 활동가들의 활동들이 다시 한번 위축되는 그런 상황들은 좀 없었으면 하는 그런 바람이 있습니다. 따라서 이러한 상황에서 활동가들이 지속적으로 활동을 이어갈 수 있도록 어떠한 조치들을 정부에서 강구하고 있고 취할 수 있는지 좀 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
남북관계 발전법이라는 게 있습니다. 그 남북관계 발전법에 전단 살포를 금지하는 그 조항이 있었습니다. 그 조항은 대한민국의 헌법재판소에 의해서 표현의 자유에 어긋난다, 위반된다라고 해서 그것은 위헌 판결을 받았습니다. 그거 우선 한 가지 말씀을 드리고, 그 다음에 북한이 한국으로 오물 풍선을 지금까지 약 30회에 걸쳐서 6,000개 넘는 그 풍선을 뿌렸습니다. 이렇게 함으로 해서 접경 지역에 있는 우리 국민뿐만 아니고 다른 지역에 있는 우리 국민들도 굉장히 불안감이 높아지고 있는 것이 사실입니다. 북한의 이러한 오물 풍선 살포는 매우 비열한 이 전례가 없는 그런 잘못된 행위다, 이렇게 볼 수가 있겠습니다. 그리고 현재 이 탈북민들의 전단 이 살포와 관련해서는 항공안전법에 무인 자유, 그러니까 2kg 이상의 물체를 매달아서 날릴 경우에는 항공안전법에 저촉될 수 있다고 하는 그런 법적인 규정이 있습니다. 그래서 일부 전단 살포 단체들이 현재 경찰에서 조사를 받고 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 그래서 이 문제는 경찰 조사 결과를 우리가 더 지켜봐야 되겠다, 그런 생각을 합니다. 그렇지만 다시 한 번 더 말씀을 드리지만은 헌법재판소 결정에 의해서 이 전단 살포를 금지하는 그 남북관계 발전법 조항은 위헌으로 판결 나타난 점을 말씀드리고, 정부는 그런 헌법재판소의 결정을 존중하면서 동시에 현재 항공안전법과 같은 그런 법에 근거해서 그 전단과 관련된 그런 문제들이 처리되어야 된다, 그렇게 생각하고 있습니다.
So first of all, there was a time when in the development of Inter-Korean Relations Act used to have a clause that prevented interpretations from sending leaflets to North Korea. However, there was a constitutional court decision made within South Korea that such clause goes against the freedom of expression. Therefore, the final ruling by the Constitutional Court was that such clause should be deleted. Second of all, there's a lot of cases of North Koreans sending trash balloons to South Korea recently. North Koreans have sent over 6,000 trash balloons to South Korea over 30 different occasions. And there has been increasing concern and worries about the people living along the border area, as well as other South Korean people living in other regions. And this is a notorious action that the North Koreans are taking, and this is something that we have never seen in history of two Koreas. And then at the same time, we have to think about other laws that we have in South Korea. There are some defector organizations sending leaflets to North Korea. And there is some concern that these actions may go against the Aviation Safety Act that we have in South Korea. When somebody wishes to send something that goes over 2 kilograms in weight, then they will have to get approval through the Aviation Safety Act. So therefore, there are some legal issues related to this leaflet-related activities. So there are some police investigation that is ongoing with some organizations. So we will have to carefully look into the decision that the police make and then see how the leaflet-related activity will go. thing that we want to highlight is that the Korean's constitutional court have ruled that it is the freedom of expression of the people to send leaflets to North Korea. But at the same time, we will have to respect the decision that is made within South Korea about the laws that we currently have on other issues.
Thank you very much. I'll take the next question from this side. Go ahead. Please identify yourself briefly.
I'm a reporter for Korean Peninsula and Kim, and since there's an interpreter, I'll ask my question in Korean. 그래서 그 항공안전법 경찰 조사 이루어지고 있다고 하셨는데 만약에 저촉되는 걸로 이제 결론이 날 경우에는 단체들과 좀 소통하셔가지고 지금 긴장 상황이 커지고 있기 때문에 좀 전단 살포를 좀 보류해달라 이렇게 요청하실 계획이 있으신지 여쭤보고 싶고요. 그리고 지금 북한이 이제 헌법 개정 아까도 말씀하셨는데 이제 계속해서 남북관계 완전히 단절하고 결별하는 수순으로 가고 있어서 통일부 역할이 좀 많이 축소되고 있는 것 같은데 이 부분을 좀 타개하실 방안은 어떻게 갖고 계신지 궁금합니다.
So the question is divided into two sections. First of all, as there is an ongoing police investigation about the violation of the Aviation Safety Act, if the investigation result says that the activist action has been violating this Aviation Safety Act, will the Ministry of Unification engage this organization and try to ask them to refrain from sending leaflets to North Korea? And the second part of the question is that the North Korea has been recently making an announcement about their constitutional reform about their unification-related clauses. And that actually reduces the responsibility of the Ministry of Unification that deals with North Korea. So what is the plan for the ministry now under current situation?
첫 번째 질문 관련해서 아까 말씀드린 대로 그거는 이제 현재 경찰에서 조사가 진행되고 있기 때문에 제가 이제 더 이상 언급을 하면 적절치 않다 이렇게 생각되고 그 경찰 조사 결과를 지켜봐야 되겠다고 생각합니다. 그 다음에 두 번째 질문과 관련해서는 우리 정부로서는 북한이 이야기하는 두 국가론을 받아들일 수 없다 하는 거죠. 우리 헌법 4조는 대한민국의 헌법 3조는 대한민국의 영토가 한반도와 자유도서로 되어 있다는 걸 분명히 하고 있기 때문에 또 그리고 우리는 4조에 따라서 민주적 기본질서에 입각한 평화통일을 추구해야한다고 하는 그런 헌법 규정이 있기 때문에 북한의 반통일적인 그런 두 개의 국가로는 대한민국의 헌법에 어긋나는 것이기 때문에 그걸 받을 수 없다. 오늘 이 톡에서도 이렇게 말씀드렸던 것처럼 윤석열 대통령의 통일 독트린을 하는 것은 북한의 이런 반통일적인 정책이 진행되고 있는 상황에서 대한민국은 자유, 평화, 통일을 지속적으로 추구하겠다라고 하는 의지를 갖겠다 이렇게 볼 수 있겠습니다. 그래서 아까 7개 액션 플랜을 상세하게 설명드렸던 것처럼 그 액션 플랜은 북한 당국과 대화, 그다음 논의를 통해서 우리가 진행할 수 있는 것이 있고 북한 당국의 호응이 없다고 하더라도 통일부와 우리 정부가 자체적으로 추진할 수 있는 그런 방안들이 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리 정부는 지속적으로 북한과의 대화를 추진하면서 동시에 우리 정부가 통일의 여건을 마련하기 위해서 할 수 있는 모든 조치들을 취해 나갈 것이다 이렇게 말씀드립니다. 그런 면에서 본다고 한다면 이런 상황에서도 통일부의 역할이 결코 줄어들지 않을 것이다 그런 생각합니다.
So as there is currently an ongoing investigation about the Aviation Safety Act, I don't think it is appropriate for me to make any more comment about this issue until the decision is made. And about the second part, the Korean government believes that we are adhering to our own constitutional values. Article 3 and Article 4 of the Republic of Korea's constitution states that the territory of the Republic of Korea constitutes of the Korean Peninsula as well as the surrounding islands, and we wish to accomplish unification based on freedom and peace. So even when North Korea brings up the idea of two different states within the Korean Peninsula, and such an anti-unification related theories will not be accepted by the Korean Constitution and Korean government. That is why the Yoon Suk-yeol administration has recently announced our unification doctrine to create a unified Korean Peninsula based on freedom. And within this unification doctrine, we have action plans. Some of them requires North Korean response, as we are trying to promote dialogue between the two Koreas. However, there are some parts of the doctrine, action plan, that does not require North Korean response and can be carried out by Republic of Korea law. So even under the current situation with the North Koreans rejecting the idea of unification, I wouldn't say that the Ministry of Unification role has been reduced.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the back with the bottle in your hand. Sorry, I can't see you.
Hi, my name is Ben Sando. I'm actually with the Global Taiwan Institute think tank here in DC, but when it comes to Korea policy, many people identify that there is a challenge in engaging with North Korea, South Korea engaging with North Korea, but also trying to pressure and criticize the human rights abuses in North Korea. So how can the Unification Ministry balance advocating for human rights and advancing practical reunification policies?
네, 이제 한국 정부에서 이제 북한과 이제 정책을 추진하는 과정에서 어떻게 보면 좀 대화를 추진하는 경우도 있고 대화가 어려운 상황에서 북한과의 인권 증진을 위해서 정책을 추진하는 경우도 있다고 생각이 됩니다. 다만 두 가지 사이에서의 균형을 잡는 것은 상당히 어려운 일이라고 생각이 되는데요. 이제 북한과의 대화를 추진하는 것과 북한과의 인권 증진을 위해 노력하는 것 어떤 식으로 균형을 갖추실지 궁금합니다.
근데 지금까지 이 주장들을 보게 되면 북한의 열악한 인권 문제를 제기하고 또 그 개선을 북한 당국에게 촉구한다고 할 경우에 그러한 주장이 이 북한 당국을 불편하게 해서 남북 대화를 저해할 것이다. 이런 이제 주장이 있었습니다. 저는 그 주장에 동의하지 않습니다. 이 통일의 궁극적인 목표라고 하는 것은 한반도에 살고 있는 개개인 모두가 자유와 인권과 번영을 누리는 것이다 하는 것이죠. 그렇기 때문에 이러한 통일의 목표를 달성하기 위해서는 북한 주민들의 인권 정진이라고 하는 것이 가장 중요한 남북 관계의 어젠다의 하나로 되어야 된다 이런 생각을 합니다. 그리고 대한민국은 이미 선진국입니다. 대한민국이 선진국으로서 자유와 인권이라고 하는 이런 보편적인 가치를 추구한다는 것이 중요하고 이런 보편적인 가치를 추구하는 대한민국의 이런 노력은 통일 외교에도 크게 기여할 것이다. 이런 말씀을 드립니다. 윤석열 정부 대북 정책, 이 대외 정책, 외교 정책의 가장 중요한 것은 가치 지향적인 value based approach다. 가치 지향적인 그러한 접근 방식이라고 하는 점을 다시 한번 말씀을 드립니다.
So when we have discussions about North Korean human rights, there are some people who claim that we should reduce our comments about North Korean human rights issue because this will make the authorities uncomfortable and therefore reduce inter-Korean dialogue. However, we have to think about our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to have a unification for everyone living on the Korean Peninsula so that everyone can enjoy freedom, human rights, and prosperity. So we should continue to try to promote human rights situation in North Korea and try to utilize that as one of the agenda in dealing with North Korea and when we try to have an inter-Korean dialogue and agreement. So the Korean government is already a developed country and it is important for us to adhere to universal values like freedom and human rights. That is once again why we have this unification doctrine to talk about North Korean human rights issue based on the common values that the community shares.
Thank you very much. Next question. I guess John, go ahead.
Hi, my name is John. I go to George Washington University Elliott School. I'm a student here. I was just talking to 저도 한국에 20대로서 제 주변 사람들이나 아니면 설문조사를 봐도 북한뿐 아니라 우리나라 안에서도 북한과의 통일이 필요 없다고 생각하는 사람이 많아지고 있다고 생각을 하는데 최근 설문조사들 중에는 거의 20대의 70%가량이 필요 없다고 생각을 하고 있다는 뉴스들을 많이 봤습니다. 그리고 무엇보다도 필요 없다를 떠나서 어린 세대들이 남북 문제에 대한 관심 자체가 줄어들고 있다고 생각하고 그 부분이 가장 우려되는 부분인데 혹시 아까 말씀하신 플랜 중에 젊은 세대를 교육한다는 부분이 있었는데 디테일하게 어떤 식으로 하실 계획이신지 궁금합니다.
So, I'm Korean, I'm in my 20s. And when we look into the survey that is done in South Korea, there are more people who do not want to have unification. And one recent survey shows that over 70% of the South Koreans in their 20s said they did not want to have unification. And at the same time, there was a survey that shows that the level of interest in unification is decreasing among the young people. And the minister have introduced that there will be a policy to promote the interests of young generations within his unification doctrine. So please tell us some of the details of how this action will be conducted.
우선 이 통일의 문제를 둘러싸고 여러 가지 이제 논란이 있는 것이 사실입니다. 근데 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 한국인들에게 이 통일이라고 하는 것은 도덕적인 의무다 하는 것이죠. 이 통일이라는 것은 경제적인 이해 덕실을 떠나서 도덕적인 의무, 가치지향적인 차원에서 접근해야 된다 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 미국의 링컨 대통령이 노예 해방을 할 때 정치적인 편의, 경제적인 이해 덕실보다는 보편적인 인권이라고 하는 그런 차원에서 도덕적인 의무의 관점에서 접근했다. 저는 그렇게 생각합니다. 통일을 하는 것도 북한 주민들의 열악한 인권 상황 그리고 열악한 경제적인 상황을 본다고 한다면 자유세계에 살고 있는 한국인들이나 또 국제사회에 있는 그 시민들이 이 한국의 통일 문제라고 하는 것을 도덕적인 의무의 관점에서 접근해야 된다. 저는 그렇게 생각을 합니다. 우리 사회의 젊은이들이 통일에 대해서 부정적인 인식을 갖게 된 것은 이 통일 문제를 굉장히 경제적인 이해 덕실의 문제로 온 것에 하나의 이유가 있다 이렇게 생각합니다. 그 경제적인 차원에서 보더라도 그 대단히 연구를 보더라도 통일 비용이라든지 그 결과에 대해서 논란이 있는 것이 사실이고요. 분단된 상태에서 대한민국이 지난 70년간 이 민주화 경제 성장을 동시에 우리가 이루었습니다. 그런 우리 한국인들의 역량이라고 한다면 통일도 충분히 통일 과정에 생기는 여러 가지 어려움도 충분히 극복할 수 있을 것이다 그런 생각을 합니다. 그래서 저는 한국의 기성세대가 한국의 젊은 세대들에게 이 통일을 도덕적인 의무로 한 관점에서 가치지향적인 관점에서 더 분명하게 이야기를 하는 것이 필요하고 그런 방향에서 우리 젊은이들의 그런 통일에 대한 이 생각과 기대를 설득해 나가는 게 중요하다 이런 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다.
So it is true there is some debate about unification within South Korea, and there are some people who believe that unification will be a problem that we will have to take care of in the future. And when they talk about this problem, they talk about economic balance. And I think, however, unification should be considered from a moral responsibility perspective, instead of thinking about cost-benefit analysis of economic calculation. So when President Lincoln had the Emancipation Proclamation, I don't think he had considered economic issues at some, but he thought it's important for us to have that because it is the right thing to do, and because that was the royal thing to do. And I think the Korean unification shares the same fundamental background. So we live in a free world, as the South Koreans and as Americans. And as a responsible member of the international community, it is important for us to push for this moral responsibility and try to make sure that the people on the northern side of the Korean Peninsula can enjoy that as well. So when we have young people having a negative perception about unification, I believe the major reason is that they have considered the unification issue as an economic issue, because there will be a lot of burden that's given to South Korea after unification happens. But we have to remember that the South Korea people have made a significant development over the past 70 years. We were able to accomplish democratization, and we had a significant economic development. I believe the Korean people are capable of overcoming challenges. So I think the responsibility of the old generation is to try to let the younger generations understand that this unification is more of an important moral value that we have to afford. And this is some of the ideas that we want to spread to the other side of the Korean Peninsula. And I think this is one of the ways that we should utilize to try to persuade our younger generation.
Thank you very much. I'll take a question from this side in the middle. Yeah, Benicia, sorry.
Hi, my name is Benicia. I'm a master's fellow here at GW. I was just curious, you talked about integrating North Korean defectors into South Korean society. And one of the methods through which this happens is through HANA centers and the Korean HANA Foundation. So I'm just curious because I did see recently, I believe on NK News, there was concerns about the integration of HANA centers into the Korean HANA Foundation as a whole. So what are your thoughts on the restructuring of HANA centers, and do you think there is room for increased efficiency for the regional centers, or are there other ways that the government could help support these? Thank you.
네, 장관님께서 이제 탈북민들의 이제 사회 통합에 대해서 중요하게 말씀하셨는데요. 어떻게 보면 좀 구체적인 사례가 하나 센터를 통한 지역 내 탈북민 통합이 하나 있을 것 같습니다. 최근에 NK 뉴스를 통해서 읽은 내용인데 이제 일부 이제 국제적으로 이제 운영이 되는 지역 내 하나 센터를 이제 하나 재단 산하로 편입시키는 작업이 있을 거다라는 이야기를 들었는데요. 이런 부분에서 이제 효율성이 증가될 수 있다고 보시는지, 그리고 이런 면에서 이제 조금 더 내실 있게 이제 탈북민들에 대한 통합을 지원할 수 있는 방안이라고 생각하시는지 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
네, 이제 북한 사람들이 탈북해서 자유를 찾아 한국에 오게 되면은 하나원이라고 하는 이 곳에서 이제 3개월간 교육을 받습니다. 교육을 받고 나면은 우리 한국 정부에서 탈북민들에게 공공임대 아파트를 하나 제공을 합니다. 그러면 그 아파트를 제공받은 그 지역에 하나 센터가 있습니다. 이게 전국에 25개가 있습니다. 그래서 이 하나 센터가 그 지역에 있는 탈북민들을 케어를 하게 되죠. 그런데 지금 또 이 탈북민들을 지원하는 하나 재단이 있습니다. 그래서 이 하나 재단이 지금 세 곳의 하나 센터를 직영을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 이 하나 센터 운영의 효율성을 높이기 위해서 하나 재단에서 이 센터들을 직영한 숫자를 조금 더 늘려야 되지 않느냐, 그런 논의가 지금 진행이 되고 있습니다. 자, 이것은 법 개정 사항입니다. 그렇기 때문에 이 문제는 현재 정부가 전문가들 또 하나센터 또 관계자들의 의견을 수렴해서 이 논의를 계속해 나가고 있고, 아까 질문자가 말씀하신 것처럼 이 수요자인 탈북민들에게 실질적인 도움이 되는 방향으로 이 통합 문제가 다루어져야 된다라고 생각하고 있고, 그런 방향으로 정부가 현재 그 프로세스를 추진하고 있다, 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있습니다.
So to give you a little background, when North Koreans first come to South Korea, they'll go to an institution called Hanawan, and they'll be trained there for 3 months to have a better understanding about South Korean society, and they will be able to settle in the region that they wish to settle. And when they decide on the place they want to settle, the Korean government will give them a housing subsidy in the form of a long-term lease apartment. And once they get into this apartment, the regional Hana centers will provide them with necessary support to adapt into the South Korean society. And right now, the Korea Hana Foundation manages 3 Hana centers directly within their authority, and other Hana centers are independent. And we believe it is important for us to try to think about recipient-centered approach to try to provide a pragmatic support for the North Korean defectors. And in order for the Hana Foundation to have more Hana centers to be directly supervised under its responsibility, there must be an amendment to the existing law that is required. And in order for us to do that, we need to have several processes, including having a discussion with the recipients, Hana centers, and experts related in the field. So we will try to design a policy and amendment if necessary to make sure that the North Korean defectors can get the most out of the services that the Korean government provides.
Thank you. I'll take a question from this side. Go ahead, right in the middle. Yes.
Hello, my name is Dina Sa. I'm the president of the Korean Graduate Student Association of GW. And so one of the things that I have theorized as a way to ease into unification before fully opening the gates to each other is to try open up the railways as a passage for enormous amounts of global trade to happen, and also some natural exchange of culture to happen as well. So I think this can be a way to let North Korea grow and lessen the economic and social burden that the South Korean people might be feeling. Is this a possible scenario that the South Korean government see happening someday in the future? And are there any efforts in preparing for it? Thank you.
네, 저희가 통일에 있을 수 있는 이제 경제 사회적 비용을 단기적으로 줄여 나가는 데 있어서 이제 남북 간의 이제 기차 등을 활용할 교류가 필요하다고 생각이 됩니다. 예를 들어 이제 대규모 무역을 통해서 이제 경제적인 비용을 낮추고 자연스러운 문화 교류를 통해서 이제 사회 통합을 또 기여할 수 있다고 생각이 되는데요. 이러한 부분들이 접근 가능하다고 생각하시는지 여쭤보고 싶고, 그리고 이제 이를 위해서 혹시 추구하고 계신 노력들이 있는지 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
우선 이 질문과 관련해서는 제가 한 가지 좀 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 북한 현 김정은 정권은 할아버지 아버지로부터 권력을 물려받은 세습 권력이라는 얘기죠. 그렇기 때문에 제가 보기에 이 김정은 정권은 세습적 독재 권력의 딜레마에 빠져 있다, 이런 생각을 합니다. 자, 중국의 경우를 보게 되면은 덩 샤오팽이라는 인물이 1978년에 자기 전임자인 마오쩌둥을 비판하고 개혁개방으로 나갔습니다. 1986년 베트남의 도이모이라고 하는 개혁개방 정책을 보게 되면은 그 당시 베트남의 젊은 지도자들이 그 전임자들을 비판하고 개혁개방으로 나갔다는 얘기죠. 그런데 김정은 위원장의 경우에는 그 권력을 세습을 받았습니다. 그렇기 때문에 그 전임자들을 비판할 수 없는 그런 딜레마에 빠져 있다고 하는 것이죠. 그 점을 그 어떤 그 한계점을 우선 제가 지적을 하고 싶고, 그리고 방금 질문하신 것처럼 남북 간이 철도가 열리고 이런 교류가 활성화된다고 한다면은 그건 대단히 이 통일 과정에서의 바람직한 그런 하나의 결과를 가져올 수 있다, 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 그렇지만은 북한은 최근에 이 적대적인 두 국가론을 내세우면서 제가 오늘 아까 토크에서 말씀드렸던 것처럼 북한 주민들의 한국 사회에 대한 동명심을 차단하기 위해서 완전히 지금 휴전선 일대에 이 철조망을 쌓고 방벽을 쌓고, 방금 말씀하신 대로 과거에 일부 놓았던 경의선, 그 다음에 서해안의 경의선과 동해안의 경원선, 이 철도도 완전히 폭파하고 있는 그런 상황이다, 이렇게 상황이고, 그렇기 때문에 방금 말씀하신 그러한 방향으로의 남북 관계 개선은 당분간은 기대하기가 어렵지 않을까 하는 그런 생각을 합니다.
So we have to understand the North Korean society in order to answer that question. So Kim Jong-un basically inherited his power from his father, and his father inherited his power from his grandfather. And this kind of succession of power in this authoritarian regime brings a new challenging dilemma. When you look at China, Mao had very interesting policy, but Deng Xiaoping came in and started to have his reformist policy while criticizing Mao's previous actions. Vietnam was able to have successful Doi-Moi reforms because the young generation of the political leaders were able to criticize the previous leaders and say what is the right thing to do for the Vietnamese future. But when it comes to Kim Jong-un, as he had inherited power from his father, and his father inherited power from his grandfather, it's very difficult for them to challenge the previous leaders and then try to suggest a new direction. So if we have a railways between two Koreas, and if we start to have a good interaction between two Koreas, I think that is the right path for us to have a successful preparation for unification. However, as North Korea have recently announced a policy called a two-host policy to redefine inter-Korean relations as a relations of two hostile states, they have been trying to cut off the South Korean influence for the North Koreans, as there is more increasing level of admiration from North Korean people towards South Korean society. And one of the actions they've done was to have more wire fences to be set between two Koreas. And they have demolished railways on the west and east coast of the Korean Peninsula that were used to connect South and North Korea. So while the direction that the North Koreans are taking is blocking an inter-Korean engagement and creates more challenges.
Thank you very much. I'll take a question from this side in the front row. Go ahead. Yep.
Your Excellency, my name is Alan Jung, I'm an undergraduate student. It's good to see you again in 3 months, sir. Sir, I have a question about engaging with North Korea. Thank you for your emphasis on our need to have constructive engagement with North Korea. With that being said, I just have a question about, like, what would be the realistic and pragmatic approach of us to engage with North Korea? Have you heard about the bipartisan legislature in the U.S. Congress, the H.R. 1369, the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act that a lot of Korean Americans support as their effort for peace and prosperity in Northeast Asia? Thank you very much.
예, 장관님 오늘 오셔서 이제 남북 간의 이제 좀 실질적인 그리고 건설적인 대화를 통해서 이제 실질적인 거 진전을 만들어내야 된다라는 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 이제 장관님께서 이제 관련된 또 어떤 생각을 가지고 계신지 좀 구체적으로 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 특히나 이제 미국 내에서는 이제 한반도 평화 법안이라는 것이 논의되고 있는 것이 있습니다. 이건 의회에서 양당이 지지를 하는 법안이고 많은 한인들도 관심을 가지고 지지하는 법안입니다. 관련한 내용들에 대해서 장관님께서 어떤 생각을 가지고 계신지 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
네, 정부는 이번 통일 독트린을 발표하면서 북한 당국의 모든 의제에 대해서 대화를 하자 이렇게 이야기를 했습니다. 그러니까 윤석열 대통령께서 직접 대화 제의를 했기 때문에 상당히 북한도 그것을 신중하게 검토해야 된다 이런 말씀을 드립니다. 그리고 현재 남북 대화가 진행되고 있지 않고 북한이 개발하고 있는 이런 상황에서는 한반도 평화를 지키기 위해서는 한미동맹 강화를 통한 확고한 억제력의 구축이 우선 선행되어야 된다 그렇게 생각을 합니다. 그리고 우리가 북한의 군사적 위협에 대응할 수 있는 이런 확고한 억제력을 갖추어 놓고 또 북한의 태도 변화를 기다리는 것이 올바른 방법이 아닌가 그런 생각을 합니다.
So when the Korean government announced our unification doctrine, part of it includes an area that suggests a dialogue with North Koreans. And when we suggested this dialogue with North Koreans, we have announced that we're willing to take about any issue that the North Koreans want to take about between two Koreas. And as President Yoon Suk-yeol was the one who announced this plan, I think that it has an important meaning for the South Korean government, and therefore we sincerely hope that the North Korean authority will have a careful look at the proposal that the South Korean government is making. And while the inter-Korean dialogue is not happening between two Koreas, the North Koreans has been escalating tension on the Korean Peninsula. And I think at this point, what's important for us to do is to make sure that we have a strong deterrence prepared against North Korea through the ROK-US alliance, and use that as a foundation to establish peace and prosperity, and then wait for North Koreans to change their attitude about their dialogue between two Koreas.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more questions. So why don't we go in the back in the middle there?
Hi, my name is Sang-eun Lee. I'm a Korean economic daily newspaper journalist. Can I talk in Korean first? 지금 이제 한미 관계 강화를 통해서 억지력이 먼저 확보되어야 한다고 말씀하셨는데 구체적으로 억지력의 확보라는 것을 어떤 수준으로 생각하시는지 궁금합니다. 예를 들면 미국의 핵자산을 뭐 한반도 근처에 전개해야 한다든가 이런 상황까지도 필요하다고 보시는지 그에 대한 견해가 첫째는 궁금하고요. 두 번째로서는 지금 미국 대선을 앞두고 있는데 예를 들어 트럼프 전 대통령이 당선되거나 할 경우에는 상당히 이제 북한에 대한 접근 방식이 변화할 가능성이 제기가 되고 있습니다. 이제 어느 양당 모두 어느 쪽이 되든 간에 변화가 예상되고 있는데요. 이 부분에 대해서 앞으로 어떻게 전망하시는지 또 이제 한국 정부 입장에서는 어떻게 대응해야 한다고 보시는지 그 견해를 좀 말씀해 주시면 합니다.
So there are 2 questions. First of all, as the minister has emphasized the importance of deterrence, I'd like to know which level of deterrence the Korean government needs while cooperating with the United States. Do you think it is important for us to have a nuclear asset deployed to South Korea? And second question is that there's going to be an upcoming U.S. presidential election. And if President Trump returns to the White House, there's going to be a significant change in North Korea policy from the United States that is expected. And even when the Vice President Harris is elected, there's going to be change in the policy. Then how is the Korean government looking into this situation, and what kind of preparations is the Korean government doing?
우선 지난 4월달에 이제 워싱턴 선언이 채택이 되었습니다. 그 워싱턴 선언의 핵심은 미국의 한국에 대한 확장 억제력을 강화한다는 얘기죠. 그래서 방금 질문하신 것에 그 억제력이라고 한다면 재래식 그리고 미국의 해구산에 기초한 확장 억제력의 강화 그 말씀을 우선 들을 수가 있겠습니다. 그 다음에 이 핵 자산 또 핵무기라고 하는 것은 최근에 와서는 굉장히 첨단화되어 있다 이 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 그러니까 이 핵을 탑재하는 이 플랫폼이라고 하는 것이 그것이 굳이 과연 한반도 남한 지상에 배치되어야만 하는 것이죠. 미국의 한국에 대한 확장 억제력이라고 하는 것이 하는 것을 실행하기 위해서 그 핵 자산이라고 하는 것이 예를 들면은 핵 추진 잠수함에 탑재되어 있을 수도 있고 그렇기 때문에 그러한 플랫폼이 충분한 확장 억제력의 수단이 될 수 있다고 한다면 굳이 그 핵무기를 이 남한 땅에 재배치할 필요가 있겠는가 이런 전문가의 의견에 대한 제가 우선 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 그 다음에 미국의 대선 결과는 어느 누구도 현 시점에서 예측하기는 어려울 것이다. 이 말씀을 드리고 한국 정부는 미국 정치 변화와 상관없이 지금의 아주 튼튼하고 확고한 아주 강력한 한미 동맹을 바탕으로 향후 미국의 새로운 정부와 아주 긴밀하게 협의하고 또 협력해 나갈 수 있을 것이다. 이렇게 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다.
Last April, through the ROC-US summit, we were able to agree on the Washington Declaration, which talks about the stronger extended deterrence from the United States for South Korea. And the deterrence means that we have a conventional deterrence against North Korea's conventional weapons, and an extended deterrence based on the nuclear umbrella that the United States provides for South Korea. And when we talk about this nuclear umbrella, we have to think about the nature of these nuclear assets. Nuclear assets are advanced technology and they are strategic weapons. And there is a different platforms how the weapons can be utilized in times of crisis. So with a strategic asset like nuclear submarines that can have a nuclear weapon, it doesn't necessarily, the nuclear weapons does not necessarily have to be on the South Korean soil to function successfully for an extended deterrence. And second of all, we don't know how the US presidential election will turn out. I believe that no one will be confident enough to say how the result will turn out. However, what we can say is that even when there is political change in the United States, we have a strong ROC-US alliance, and that can be used as a foundation to continue our cooperation with the United States.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a moment for a brief question. So in the middle there.
I'm so sorry, but my question is gonna be two parts. So I'm sorry,
Keep them
guys.
short then.
Okay. My name is Sejin from Elliott School, concentrating on international politics. 그러니까 바로 지금 질문 드리고 싶은 거는 장관님께서는 통일이 종국적으로 100년이 걸리건 200년이 걸리건 이루어져야 된다고 생각을 하시나요? There are some questions, so like, please just answer yes or no quickly.
Yes.
그러면 계속 I'll just keep with my questions list. 그러면 그 통일이 평화 통일 중심으로 가야 하는지 흡수 통일 중심으로 가야 하는지 분명하게 말씀을 해주시고 두 번째로는 저는 오히려 통일에 관한 사항이 되게 남한이라고 얘기하기 이상하지만 남한 내의 내분을 오히려 더 일으킨다고 생각을 하거든요. 예를 들어서 진보와 그 보수 정당과 그 지지자 간의 견해 차이만 해도 뭐 굉장히 막 다이버시파이 됐다고 생각을 합니다. 근데 저는 이러한 내분이 단순히 개인의 가정사나 가족사에 그 기여했을 뿐만이 아니라 그 안에서 분명히 정당들의 프로파간다나 아니면은 조금 약간 그런 가스라이팅이 아니고 약간 그런 세뇌 같은 포퓰리즘 정치 같은 그런 사안도 분명히 개입이 돼 있다고 생각을 하거든요. 그래서 이런 거에 대해서 남한의 내분에 대해서 통일부 장관으로서의 견해는 어떠한지 질문드리고 싶습니다.
So let me first start with the questions. The first question is, does the minister believe that unification should happen in the Korean Peninsula, whether it takes 100 or 200 years? The answer is yes. And the second part of the question is, what kind of unification do you want? A peaceful unification between two Koreas, or an absorption of North Korea to the South Korean side? And lastly, the question is that we have some tension in South Korea. We have a division of ideas when it comes to unification. The liberals and conservatives have different ideas, and sometimes these ideas seem to like divided the South Korean society. Some people might have different opinions about unification because of the family background, but she believes that the division is happening because of some of the political debates that we constantly have with the Korean society that has politicized the unification-related issue. How is the unification ministry thinks about this issue?
우선 흡수 통일과 관련해서 대한민국 정부는 흡수 통일을 추진하지 않습니다. 그거는 우리 정부의 정책이죠. 자, 그런데 제가 이제 대학에 왔기 때문에 한 가지 좀 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 대한민국 정부가 흡수 통일을 추진하지 않습니다. 그렇지만은 자유롭고 풍요로운 대한민국의 존재라고 하는 것은 북한 정권에게는 위협이 된다고 하는 것이죠. 그렇기 때문에 북한 정권은 대한민국이 흡수 통일을 추구하지 않음에도 불구하고 이 자유롭고 풍요로운 대한민국의 존재 때문에 이 흡수 통일 당할 것이라고 하는 그런 강박관념에 사로잡혀 있다. 그 말씀을 제가 분명하게 드리고 싶고, 최근에 이 북한이 전개하는 두 개의 국가론 통일 지우기, 자, 이 모든 것들이 북한 이 당국의 이 이 한국의 어떤 그런 성공적인 발전, 거기에 대한 어떤 이 현실, 그다음 체제 경쟁에서의 어떤 패배감, 그런 데서 비롯되고 있다. 따라서 아까 또 제가 말씀드린 것처럼 북한 주민들의 한국 사회에 대한 열망은 점점 더 커지고 있다고 하는 것, 그걸 차단해야 되는 그런 하나의 이제 목적에서 나왔다, 이렇게 제가 다시 한번 말씀드리고 싶고, 그 다음에 물론 한국 내에도 이 통일 방법이라든지 여러 문제를 두고 논란이 있는 것은 사실입니다. 그렇지만 우리가 한국인들이 합의한 게 하나가 있습니다. 그건 대한민국 헌법입니다. 미국인들이 합의한 것이 미국 헌법이듯이 한국인들도 대한민국 헌법이라는 그 장전에 합의를 했습니다. 그 대한민국 헌법의 그 가치는 대한민국이 자유민주주의에 의한 평화 통일을 누적해야 된다고 하는 그것이 명시가 되어 있다는 얘기죠. 그렇기 때문에 우리가 그러한 헌법적인 가치를 존중하고 그러한 어떤 원칙에 서서 통일을 추진해 나간다고 한다면은 궁극적으로 통일과 과정에서도 우리 국민적인 컨센서스를 이룰 수 있을 것이다. 저는 그렇게 생각합니다.
So one thing that I want to clarify is the Korean government does not want to observe North Korea and achieve unification. But peaceful and prosperous Republic of Korea can be considered as a threat to North Korea because they believe they can be observed by the South Korean side. Maybe the recent actions that the North Korean government is taking, such as claiming that there are two states in the peninsula and deleting the idea of unification, may have all resulted from this idea that they have been defeated by the South Korean system. Because there's more people who admire South Korean culture, society, and there are more North Koreans who want to be like South Koreans. So therefore, the existence of Republic of Korea has become an existential threat for the North Koreans. Therefore, they are very eager to cut off ties with South Korea and try to prevent the South Korean influence to take over their side. And it is also true that there are debates within South Korea about unification. But there is one thing that everybody agreed on: the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. Our Constitution stipulates that we want to have peaceful unification based on liberal democracy. And I think it is a responsibility of the Korean government and the Korean people to respect the constitutional values. So I think when we continue to talk about these constitutional values, we will be able to eventually agree upon on our policy for unification in North Korea.
All right, we are out of time, unfortunately, so I regret to say that we are going to have to end our conversation here. I think the minister has given us an excellent sense of the human toll of division on the Korean Peninsula and the importance of North Korean people as agents in the future of the Korean Peninsula. I also think that you've given us a good sense of all of the complexities that the South Korean government as well as the South Korean people are facing with the question of the future of the peninsula, especially in this last week as we see North Korea really solidifying around the rejection of the idea of unification. So certainly this conversation does not end here. In fact, I think you have given us many different ideas of ways forward, even in the face of North Korean intransigence. So I really thank you for your remarks today and for taking so many questions. And before I ask you to thank the minister for his remarks today, he has asked that we all take a picture, so if you stay seated at the end of this, we will have a picture of all of you to show just how extensive the interest in unification is. So please join me in thanking the minister for his remarks today.